Most people see a creepy post and scroll on. You didn't. That's why you're here. Welcome to LurmoStories, where throwaway confessions, cursed files, and anonymous warnings are just the introduction. Don't click away. The parts they never screenshotted are the ones that will keep you up tonight. I moved into the building on a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day where nothing feels memorable yet. Beige hallways, low ceilings, carpet that smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals and old dust. The leasing office gave me a key fob and a folded map of the floors, circled in pen, 7B. I checked it twice because I always mess up numbers. The first time I met her was that same evening. I was heading down to my car to grab the last box. The elevator doors were already closing when a hand slid between them. Thin fingers, liver spotted, nails painted a dull pink. The doors opened again and an old woman stepped inside. Short, hunched, gray hair cut unevenly like she'd done it herself. She didn't look at me at first, just pressed the G button with the tip of her knuckle. The elevator started moving. It was quiet except for the cable hum and the faint rattle you get in older buildings. She spoke without turning her head. New tenant? Not a question. Yeah, I said, just moved in. A pause, then, 7th floor. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. 7B. She finally looked at me then. Her eyes were cloudy but focused, like she was looking past me and still hitting the right spot. No, she said calmly, 7D. I felt a small, automatic laugh leave my mouth. I don't think so. The leaf says, 7D, she repeated, more firmly. Corner unit, faces the alley. Your door sticks when it rains. The elevator passed the 3rd floor. I haven't even been there long enough to know if it sticks, I said. My voice sounded thinner than I expected. She tilted her head, studying me. You'll see, they always mix the letters up at first. I didn't answer. The elevator felt slower now, like it was hesitating between floors. When it reached 7, the doors opened. The hallway lights flickered, the way fluorescent lights do when they're close to dying. She didn't get out. I stepped forward, then stopped. My unit, 7B, was to the left. I could see the door number clearly, black metal numbers screwed into the wood. Behind me, the woman cleared her throat. That one isn't yours, she said. You don't want that one. I turned around. Why not? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Because someone's already answering to your name in there. I laughed again, weaker this time, and stepped out anyway. The elevator doors closed behind me with a soft chime, cutting off whatever else she might have said. I unlocked 7B. The door opened easily. No sticking. Inside was exactly what I expected. Half-unpacked boxes, the couch I dragged up with a dolly, the faint echo you get in a place that hasn't learned your sounds yet. I shut the door and stood there for a moment, listening. Nothing. No voices, no movement. That night passed without anything worth mentioning. The next morning, I noticed the first problem. There was a delivery slip taped to my door. Not unusual, I'd ordered a desk. What bothered me was the name printed on it. It wasn't mine. It was close. Same first name, last name off by 1 letter. Close enough that a courier could have made a mistake, but precise enough to make my stomach tighten. Apartment listed 7D. I brought it down to the front desk. The clerk frowned at the screen. Yeah, you're in 7D, he said, like it was obvious. I corrected him, showed him the lease on my phone. He squinted, scrolled, then frowned harder. Huh, that's weird. He printed something out. System shows you transferred from 7B yesterday. I didn't, I said. He shrugged, already distracted. Probably a sync issue. I'll fix it. When I got back upstairs, my key didn't work on 7B. I stood there swiping it again and again, feeling stupid, until a door further down the hall creaked open. 7D. The old woman stood there, half hidden behind the doorframe. You took too long, she said. I stared at her. My apartment. She interrupted, shaking her head. No, that was the temporary one. Temporary for what? She opened the door wider. Inside looked lived in, not cluttered, but intentional. Photos on the wall, shoes by the door, a coffee mug on the table that still had steam curling off it. You were supposed to move straight in, she said. Now it's confused. Who is it? Her mouth tightened. The building. I noticed then that one of the photos on the wall was of a man standing in an elevator. He was facing the camera. He was wearing my jacket. And you shouldn't let it hear you argue about addresses, she added. It gets attached to the first version. I didn't step inside. I couldn't. The hallway felt narrower, like the walls had shifted while I wasn't looking. That's not me, I said, pointing at the photo. The old woman followed my finger, nodded once. Not yet. I backed away toward the stairwell. She didn't try to stop me, just watched, her hand resting on the doorframe like she'd been standing there a long time. The stairs smelled like concrete and something sour. I took them two at a time down to the lobby. The front desk was empty. No clerk, no security. Just the hum of the vending machines and a stack of mail behind the counter. All of it was addressed to 7D. My name, correctly spelled this time. I didn't go back up right away. Sat in my car instead, doors locked, watching the building's windows. On the 7th floor, one window stayed lit even in daylight. The corner unit. My phone buzzed, a building-wide email notification. Subject, Tenant Update, Unit 7B. It thanked everyone for their patience and announced that 7B was no longer available due to long-term occupancy. No details, just that phrase. When I finally worked up the nerve to go back inside, the elevator doors were already open, waiting. I stepped in. No old woman this time. As the doors closed, the panel lit up on its own. 7D. The ride felt longer than before. When the doors opened, the hallway lights were steady now, brighter, cleaner. The door to 7B was gone, just wall. I walked to 7D without thinking. My key worked instantly. Inside, the boxes were unpacked. My couch was placed properly. The air smelled like my detergent. On the table was a framed photo I didn't remember owning. Me, standing in the elevator, facing forward, smiling slightly. From behind me, a calm voice spoke. "You can keep the letter," the old woman said. "Most people do." I turned. She was older than before, smaller. Her skin looked thinner, stretched tight. "You'll start correcting people soon," she added. "That's how you know you're settled." The elevator chimed somewhere in the building. I heard my voice, faint through the walls, saying, "7th floor." Then, clearer, 7B. The old woman shook her head gently and looked at me. "No," she said. 7D. I work part-time nights, cleaning a government records facility. Not a courthouse, not a police station, one of those low concrete buildings with no windows, badge readers on every door, and fluorescent lights that hum even when they're off. Census archives, land transfers, old microfilm, stuff nobody thinks about. My shift starts at 6 p.m. I clock in, grab a cart, do the same route every night. 3rd floor first, because that's where the supervisors still linger. Basement last, because nobody wants to go down there. That night, I was late by 11 minutes. The bus stalled 2 blocks away. Driver made a call, everyone groaned. Normal city stuff. I jogged the rest of the way, badge in, clocked in at 6:11. The terminal lagged like always. I didn't think anything of it. At 6:14, my radio crackled. Custodial, report to records intake. That wasn't normal. Intake closes at 5. Nobody's there at night except cleaners. I pushed my cart down the hall. Intake smelled like paper and disinfectant. 2 people were waiting, men I hadn't seen before. No uniforms, just badges on lanyards, clipped high, like they wanted them noticed. One of them checked a clipboard. "You're late." "Yeah," I said. "Bus?" "How late?" he asked. "About 10 minutes. He wrote something down. The pen scratched louder than it should have. "Did anyone speak to you before you arrived?" "No." "Did anyone recognize you on the way here?" That question caught me off guard. "What?" "Answer yes or no." "No." They exchanged a look. The other guy leaned against a filing cabinet, blocking the exit without really trying to. "What section do you clean first?" he asked. "3rd floor." "What aisle?" I told him. He nodded, like he already knew. The first guy flipped the clipboard around. There was a printed map of the building. My usual route was highlighted in yellow. A red circle marked a hallway in the basement I didn't clean unless someone requested it. "You deviated from this route tonight," he said. "I haven't even started yet." He tapped his watch. "You were late." They told me to wait, just stand there. Lights buzzing, my radio dead silent. 5 minutes passed, maybe more. Finally, the second guy spoke. "If someone asks why you were late," he said, "you tell them transportation issues." "Who's going to ask?" I said. Neither of them answered. They let me go. No write-up, no escort, just a look that said the conversation wasn't over. I started my route, trying to shake it off. Third floor was quiet. Too quiet. Half the lights were off. My cart wheels echoed like I was alone in a parking garage. At 6:47, my radio crackled again. "Custodial," a voice said. Flat, unfamiliar. "Confirm your location." I gave it. There was a pause. Then, "You're not where you're scheduled to be." I looked down at the floor map taped to my cart. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. "That's where I am," I said. Another pause, longer this time. "Remain there," the voice said, "and do not enter the basement." I hadn't planned to, but now I couldn't stop thinking about the red circle on that map, and why being late mattered enough for two strangers to notice. The rest of the third floor felt wrong after that. Not dangerous, just out of sync. Lights flickered in sections that never did. Doors I always cleaned around were closed. One office had its blinds open, chairs stacked like someone had left in a hurry. At 7:22, my cart radio clicked again, but this time it wasn't a voice. It was breathing. I pulled the radio closer. The breathing stopped. A second later, a tone chirped and a calm female voice replaced it. "Custodial, resume standard operations." No apology, no explanation. I tried to laugh it off and push toward the stairwell. That's when I noticed the log sheet taped inside my cart lid had been updated. New handwriting, neat, block letters. Basement Corridor B, priority clean. I hadn't been assigned the basement in weeks. I radioed back, said there must be a mistake. The reply came instantly. Assignment confirmed. The stairwell down smelled damp, like old concrete and something metallic. Corridor B wasn't storage, it was records overflow. Rows of shelves, sealed boxes, tags from the 70s and 80s. No cameras down there, which was unusual for a government building. About halfway down the corridor, my phone buzzed. No service, but a notification preview popped up anyway. Missed check-in, 6:03 p.m. I stared at the time. That was before I'd even arrived. Another buzz. Missed check-in, 6:06 p.m. Then one more. Status, unconfirmed. I put the phone away and kept moving. Stopping felt worse. At the far end of Corridor B was a desk I'd never seen before. Metal, old. A single lamp on it, already on. Papers laid out neatly, like someone expected me. One sheet was a printed attendance log. My name was on it, twice. One entry at 6 p.m., on time. Another at 6:11 p.m., late. There was a handwritten note under the second entry. Ask why. Behind the desk, a door stood open a few inches. Light spilled out, warmer than the fluorescence. I could hear voices inside, low, conversational. One of them said my name. I backed away, slow, cart rattling despite my grip. The radio came alive again, same flat voice as before. "Custodial," it said. "You're early." "I'm late," I said, without thinking. Silence. Then, softer this time. "Then who arrived on time?" The door behind the desk creaked wider on its own, and footsteps started coming toward it. The footsteps stopped just short of the doorway. Whoever it was didn't step out. The light stayed steady, like the room behind it didn't care if it was seen. My radio crackled again, but this time multiple voices bled through at once, overlapping, out of sync. "Confirm identity. Subject already logged. Discrepancy unresolved." I pushed the cart back, slow at first, then faster when the desk lamp flicked off by itself. The corridor lights followed, one by one, shutting down toward me. I didn't run. I didn't want to be heard running. When I reached the stairwell, the door was locked. My badge worked everywhere else. Here, it flashed red. Behind me, papers rustled, not footsteps, like someone standing still, flipping pages. A calm male voice carried down the corridor. "You were late," it said, conversational. That created overlap. "I just clean," I said. My throat was dry. "I don't know anything." "We know," the voice replied. "That's why this matters." The stairwell door clicked open on its own. I didn't question it. I pulled it open and took the steps 2 at a time. When I reached the ground floor, the building felt normal again. Lights on, hum steady. My radio was silent. The clock near the security desk read 8:04 p.m. The guard looked up. "You okay?" he asked. "You just signed out." "I didn't," I said. He turned the logbook toward me. My name was there. 8:03 p.m., completed shift. The signature wasn't mine. I left. I didn't finish the shift. Nobody stopped me. The next morning, I checked my pay stub online. I'd been paid for a full shift, overtime included. An hour later, a voicemail came in from an unknown number. No greeting, just a recording of a room tone. Then my own voice, tired, saying, "Sorry I'm late, bus stalled." I quit that job the same day. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived from the facility. No return address. Inside was a photocopy of an attendance log. One entry. 6 p.m. On time. In red ink, stamped across the page, issue resolved. Anon here. Posting because I can't get this out of my head, and HR already told me to stop speculating. I'm a facilities intern at a federal office complex in the Midwest. Big concrete building, built in the late 70s, all beige walls and humming lights. My job is boring by design. Check access panels, replace filters, log badge errors, escort contractors who aren't allowed to wander. Every intern badge is low level. Bathrooms, supply rooms, stairwells, nothing else. That's explained on day one, like a rule of gravity. My shift that night was routine. 3rd floor, west wing, the part nobody uses since 2 departments merged. Half the lights are on motion sensors, so you walk and the hallway wakes up in pieces. The air smells like dust and old carpet glue. I was scanning doors, logging green lights, when my badge reader chirped red on a storage room I'd opened dozens of times before. I tried again. Red. Reader blinked like it was thinking. Then it turned green. The door unlocked with a heavier click than usual. Not the hollow office door sound, more like something sealed. I didn't open it right away. I checked the door label. No room number, just a metal plate with old screw marks, like something had been removed. Radioed my supervisor. No answer. Building radio coverage gets bad after midnight. Curiosity beat policy. I cracked the door. Inside wasn't a storage room. It was a short hallway. Same carpet, same walls, but the ceiling was lower. Fluorescent lights already on. No motion delay. At the end was another door. Same reader model as everywhere else, except the casing was scratched smooth, like it had been used constantly. My badge was still in my hand. I hadn't meant to scan it. The reader beeped green anyway. That's when I noticed the sound. Not voices, not machines. Paper. A steady rhythm, like thousands of pages being turned by many hands, all out of sync. On the wall next to the door was a laminated sign, yellowed with age. Authorized entry confirms responsibility. No logo, no department name. I stepped back. The door behind me didn't close. It stayed open, like it was waiting to see what I'd do. My badge felt warm, not hot, just used. I checked the time on my phone. It said 2:17 a.m. I'd started this floor at 1:40. The radio clicked on by itself. Someone on the other end asked, very calmly, why I was late. I hadn't told anyone I was going anywhere. The voice on the radio didn't repeat itself. It just waited. I said my name and my assignment, like you're trained to do. My own voice sounded wrong in the hallway, like it was being absorbed instead of echoing. The reply came clipped, professional. They told me I was not scheduled for an extended task on the West Wing and asked me to confirm my location. I didn't answer right away. I was staring at the badge reader on the inner door. The green light was still on, solid, not blinking. I said I was on the 3rd floor, West Wing, near storage. That was technically true. There was a pause. Then, a different voice came on, lower, older. He told me to step away from the door and remain where I was. He didn't ask if I'd entered. He asked how far the door was open. That question bothered me more than anything else. Before I could answer, the sound of paper got louder. Not physically louder, but closer, like it was moving toward me through walls. The air in the short hallway felt different, dry and stale, like a records basement that never gets aired out. I looked behind me. The door I'd come through was still open, but the hallway outside looked wrong. The lights were on all the way down now. No gaps, no shadows. I knew for a fact that wing never lit up like that. The older voice told me to listen carefully and not interrupt. He said some doors were built around workflows that no longer existed. When departments closed, the spaces didn't disappear. They were repurposed quietly, then forgotten when the paperwork outlived the people. He told me my badge hadn't malfunctioned. It had updated. The inner door opened on its own. I saw rows of desks, packed tight, stretching farther than the building should allow. No windows, just lamps and filing trays stacked high. People sat at every desk, back straight, heads down, flipping pages, stamping forms, sliding folders into slots that vanished into the floor. They all wore badges. Old styles, different colors, different eras. Some clipped, some pinned, some hanging from cords that had frayed to threads. None of them looked up. The radio crackled. The older voice said I was now on record as present and asked me to confirm compliance. I noticed something then. On the nearest desk was a clipboard. At the top was my name, printed cleanly. Under it, a line marked "Time of Arrival," already filled in. My phone buzzed with a calendar update I hadn't made. The shift block said it ended at 6 a.m. I backed away from the doorway and told them there was a mistake, that I was an intern, temporary, not cleared for whatever this was. The older voice acknowledged that and said temporary staff were historically the most reliable. Fewer expectations, less resistance. He said the system favored people who didn't assume permanence. Behind him, I could hear the paper too now. I asked what the room was. He didn't answer directly. He said it was a continuity space. When agencies dissolved, when mandates expired, when laws were repealed but never fully erased, the work didn't stop. It narrowed. It went underground. Someone still had to process the unresolved parts. I told him I hadn't agreed to anything. He said authorization had already been logged when my badge opened the first door. Consent was inferred from access. That was the policy I'd unknowingly confirmed. One of the people inside finally stood up, a man in a wrinkled shirt, badge from the early 90s. He walked toward the doorway with careful steps, like the floor mattered. He didn't look at me. He placed a folder on a side table near the entrance and went back to his desk. The folder was thin. Inside was a single form. My name again. A checklist. Most of the boxes were already marked complete. The last item was blank. Seat assigned. The younger voice came back on the radio and said if I left now, the badge would deactivate everywhere. Elevators, exits, parking gates. I'd still be inside the building, just unaccounted for. They said people like that caused audits. I asked what happened if I stayed. The older voice said nothing dramatic. I'd sit, I'd work, I wouldn't age the way I expected. My family would get the right notices at the right times. Clean records, no loose ends. I noticed the clock on the wall inside the room. It wasn't moving, but no one seemed concerned. The hallway behind me dimmed, motion lights timing out. I thought about my badge, warm in my hand, about how it had recognized a door no map showed, how it knew where I belonged better than I did. I set the folder down without signing anything. When I stepped back into the normal hallway, the door closed softly on its own. The reader went dark. My badge cooled. Security found me 10 minutes later, confused about why I was sitting on the floor. My access logs show a gap I can't explain. HR says the West Wing has never had a storage room there. Last week, my badge failed on the front entrance for half a second before turning green. It felt warm again. I've started getting calendar invites from senders that don't exist. They always end at 6 a.m. This was LurmoStories, where anonymous fear gets a voice. When you open your next random thread, ask yourself, is this just entertainment or the start of another story like the ones you just heard?